So who is raking in more cash, Canadian truck drivers or American truck drivers? In this video, I'm gonna do a pay comparison between Canadian and American truck drivers. Because ET Transport has Canadian and American truck drivers, why not do a pay comparison video between the both of them? So we're gonna take a Canadian driver that ran about 6,500 miles from the 1st to the 15th, and we're gonna take an American driver working in an American fleet, working from the 1st to the 15th, running approximately the exact same mileage, and we'll do a pay comparison between the both of them for you guys to see out there who makes more money. Now, we'll also take this video one step further. If we're already doing a pay comparison videos between Canadian drivers and American drivers, why not do the exact same thing for owner-operators? Now, one thing that you do need to keep in mind is that Canadian truck drivers, long-haul drivers, spend about 80% of their time in the US. So this is getting even more interesting because both of them are working in the US. When creating this video, I actually had a lot of fun because I haven't seen the comparison between a Canadian driver and a US driver. Sorry, one second. I feel like my desk is a little low. We have a Canadian driver and we have an American driver, two pay stubs. I'm gonna put it on the green screen over here so you can see. So both drivers have driven the same mileage. So one driver, which we have the American driver, drove 6,549 miles, and the Canadian driver drove 6,640 miles. So literally identical mileage, probably off by about 90 miles between driver one and driver two. Canadian, all right? He gets paid 60 cents per mile. He gets paid an extra 2 cents for a hazmat load. He gets an extra 2 cents if it's a reefer load. If it's a temperature controlled hazmat load, he gets 60 plus 2 plus 2. And then he also gets 5 cents extra for, no idea for what, but an extra 5 cents. I think maybe that's safety or whatever. But we'll add that up to his pay. So a total of 69 cents Canadian per mile. Now the total, the pay stub, you can see the pay statement. Now, another thing that we need to make sure is we're just talking about gross earnings. I did not take the official pay stub, and the reason I did that was because it depends on what state or province you live in Canada. So in Canada, it depends what province you live in, that's how many taxes you're gonna be paying. And same thing in the US, it depends on which state you live in, and that's how you're gonna pay taxes. So I just took the gross earnings of both drivers, okay? Now again, the goal of this video is to see who makes more money, is a Canadian driver or a US driver. Every time I do this, people always ask what routes. So let's actually give you guys the routes quickly, okay? So the driver drove from Concord, Ontario, which is where we're located, going to Michigan. From Michigan, he crossed in Port Huron, Michigan, went to Atlanta, Georgia. From Atlanta, Georgia, he went to Columbus. From Columbus, he went to Point Edwards, Ontario. So he did a round trip to Georgia, then he did another round trip to Georgia, then he did another round trip to Indiana, and another round trip to Illinois. 6,640 miles he drove within a 2-week pay period. So this is July 1st to July 15th. Now, his gross earnings was $4,951, and this is taking into account if there was any reefer loads, if there was any layovers, if there was any waiting time. So I don't see here any layovers, I don't see here any waiting time. But yeah, so the driver did 6,640 miles and took home $4,950. Now, before I start doing the conversion from Canadian to the US, I would actually like to go into my American driver, post up his pay over here. A lot of people are asking about the mileages that we have in the Atlanta, Georgia terminal. So our American driver, like we said, he did 6,549 miles, okay? The routes that he drove is, he did a Hobart, Indiana to Illinois. From Illinois, he went to Florida. From Florida, he went to Georgia. From Georgia, he went to City of Industry, California, I believe. And then he drove from California to Massachusetts. Again, even though our drivers in the US get paid weekly, but I had to combine it for 2 weeks in order to get the comparison one-to-one so you guys can all see. So our US drivers get 65 cents per mile, and the same thing goes with the 2 cents for reefer, 2 cents for hazmat in the US. So a total of 69 cents per mile. If he just does a dry van load, then it's 65 cents per mile, okay? So the pay difference, the US driver made $4,547. Let's put that up on the green screen. The Canadian driver did $4,951. But if we get our calculator, our Canadian driver did $4,951. And if you divide that with the conversion rate, the Canadian driver made Canadian dollars. And if I divide that by 1.38, the driver actually made $3,587. Why is it so important to convert his pay into US dollars? Well, you need to understand that 80% of the driver's time is spent in the US, which means he's going into the US truck stops, which means he's spending with US dollars buying himself food, buying himself coffee, buying himself fuel. Well, the fuel obviously the company pays for, but he's constantly in the US and he's making $3,587, while our American driver is constantly in the US and he made $4,547. So Canadian drivers spend a lot of their time in the US. So you can see here the big difference between a Canadian driver and a US driver on what they're making every 15 days. Now, if you multiply this pay statement, okay, multiply that by 24, then the driver in Canada is making $86,000 US, okay, annually. Now, the US driver made $4,547 and multiply that by 24 pays is equal to $109,128. So you have $86,104 for the Canadian driver annually. Now again, guys, I just took our two drivers, one Canadian driver, one American driver. One of them works for our Canadian division, the other one works for the US division. But you guys can see yourselves who actually pockets more money at the end of the year. Now you might say the cost of living, Ronen, the cost of living is different in Canada than in the US, but that we'll have to save for another video. Now, some of you guys want to know how much money owner-operators make and what is the pay difference between a Canadian owner-operator and a US owner-operator. For that, you'll have to watch one of my next videos and you're going to need to subscribe to this channel because over the next week, I will be creating that video also. I'm Ronen and I'll catch you in my next video.